Let's take it back to the 2000s. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing "Drop It" like it's hot on the radio by Snoop Dogg. Meanwhile, a black father pulls his car in the parking lot of a warehouse in the Inland Empire before the sun rises. Steel toe boots, lunch pail. He passed the background check. He passed the drug test. He's qualified. In fact, overqualified. In the back of his mind is the fact that rent keeps going up and he's got kids to feed. What he was not aware of is that actually getting the job was just the beginning. Behind the diverse branding and progressive politics of California is a different story, a story that doesn't get into tourism campaigns or politician speeches. In 2024, black unemployment in Los Angeles County was approximately 9.9%. Asians were about 3.4%. Latinos approximately 5.5%. The gap is not small, it has been there for a long time. California at one point had a strong black middle class, mainly through aerospace, manufacturing, and public sector jobs. Union jobs, stable wages, and pensions. Those industries allowed families from Compton, Inglewood, Oakland, Richmond, and South Los Angeles to have decent lives. Afterwards, those industries deteriorated, factories moved. Defense contracts changed, public hiring was more limited. What came after the referral-based service economy was limited, and you could not forget that referrals remained within ethnic networks. Some of these cases were well documented. The EEOC sued two Latino-owned food manufacturers, Helados La Tapatia and Marquez Brothers International, for allegedly refusing to hire non-Hispanic applicants. Marquez Brothers paid $2 million to settle the allegations that black, white, and Asian applicants were discouraged from applying for factory jobs. Helados La Tapatia paid a settlement after the non-Hispanic driver and only driver was fired allegedly within a week. Then there was BaronHR, a staffing agency in Los Angeles, which was accused of discriminating with the systematic failure to refer black, white, and Asian workers for job placements while Latino applicants were favored. The settlement amounted to $2.2 million and required reforms. These were federal cases, not social media claims, not rumors. All facts. And the pattern is old and tired. Korean stores in South Central Los Angeles in the 1980s and 1990s were in most cases staffed almost exclusively by Korean employees, while the customers were mainly black. That hiring pattern was one of the several grievances of the economy that were raised during the 1992 unrest. Economic exclusion does not go out of memory. Now let's fast forward to the Inland Empire. Cardinal Health, Ryder Logistics. The EEOC brought one of the largest racial harassment cases against a company in California history after hundreds of black warehouse workers explained how the systemic abuse was directed at them. The workers had reported being insulted in both Spanish and English every day. Mayate was one of the terms used. The N word. References to monkeys. Taunts with bananas. Bathroom graffiti saying "Black people stink," and other threats were exemplified by lynching. Management was accused of deliberately giving the toughest task, denying them the training they requested, and punishing them for their complaints. Workers' settlements, including roughly 300 black people, amounted to millions of dollars. One of the workers, Barry Bryant, shared that he was told that he would never get a promotion. When he was terminated and replaced after reporting racial abuses and noose drawings, he was replaced. Anna Park, EEOC regional attorney in Los Angeles, remarked that recent anti-black workplace rulings involved offenders from different racial ethnicities, Latino, white, and the like. Diversity does not necessarily mean that anti-black prejudice will be totally eliminated. The 2022 Tesla's Fremont factory state lawsuit alleged that black employees were forced into the most physically demanding roles, and racial slurs were hurled at them. In another instance, a black elevator operator won $15 million after he had been racially harassed repeatedly. In 2024, the jury ruled that Cognizant had around 80% South Asian employees, and that non-Indian workers were fired at a rate that was more than 8 times the normal rate. Now enter the banking industry. Wells Fargo paid well over $35 million to cover the claims made by black financial advisors who argued that they were given less profitable territories to work in, while the white ones handled the accounts of the wealthy. The U.S. Department of Labor later found out that the company had denied work to over 30,000 black applicants, resulting in an $8 million settlement. A whistleblower said that Wells Fargo was staging fake interviews with minority candidates for jobs that had already been filled. Investigations by a federal agency are underway. Marilyn Booker, former Morgan Stanley Global Diversity Officer, sued the company after she alleged that she was fired for leading the reforms that were necessary for Black advisors. A few years back, 7 Black brokers brought up the concerns of them being neglected in favor of the more lucrative accounts. One white employee was reported to have said to a Black advisor that most wealthy clients are comfortable with people who look like them. Various regional banks have also encountered scrutiny due to their racial practices. Natrice Spicer filed a racial discrimination and retaliation suit against Heritage Bank of Commerce after raising several complaints. A former JPMorgan employee subsequently accused the bank of systemic race discrimination and of performative diversity hiring, which included staged interviews. Across warehousing, food production, consulting, tech, and finance, the documented cases illustrate a recurring theme. Closed networks lead to closed doors. Culturally familiar faces get promoted. Disgruntled voices get silenced, and complaining equals retaliation. Now the policymaking layer. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass took office in 2022. From 2019, Governor Gavin Newsom has been at the helm. Mayor Bass has initiated instructive directives to protect immigrant communities against federal immigration enforcement and pushed for the formal recognition of Los Angeles as a sanctuary city. Executive Directive 17 increased the measures to limit cooperation with federal immigration activity on city property. Governor Newsom unveiled a $125 million disaster relief fund for undocumented immigrants during COVID-19, calling it the first state-led effort of its kind. His team pushed for the inclusion of undocumented workers who were left out from federal relief. These steps are in the record. They have been announced publicly. They are in fact deliberate. Here's the question of accountability. Immigrant protection policies were publicized and enacted quite fast, while Black unemployment in Los Angeles County is still far above the other ethnic groups. The major anti-Black employment lawsuits had to be filed with the federal EEOC rather than the local law enforcement agencies deploying initiatives that were aimed at Black job displacement. Where is the executive directive that addresses the Black unemployment gap that has been documented? Where is the enforcement task force with a laser focus on the exclusionary hiring networks that have been revealed through the EEOC settlements? Governor Newsom has vetoed some of the proposals that were aimed at expanding unemployment benefits for undocumented workers, thereby demonstrating policy selectivity. That detail counts. But the end result that can be measured is Black unemployment remains at a high level. The Black population share in the bigger California cities has been on the downtrend. The federal lawsuits have been documenting systemic anti-Black harassment and exclusion. Protecting one vulnerable group does not mean ignoring another. It is a matter of proportional accountability. If the authorities can issue executive directives, initiate funding mechanisms, and organize public defense strategies for one constituency, then the public record raises the question as to why no similar equally visible structural initiatives have been deployed to eliminate the Black employment gap. The fact of the matter is lawsuits are present, settlements have been paid out, and the unemployment data is documented. At Scope News, our reports will say what the press releases will never tell. And the court documents reveal that for many Black Californians, the barriers to employment are not casual stories. The proof is in the court cases, the statistics, and yet till this day, they are still going on. So who is in the wrong? And when will it change? Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. This report references Los Angeles Times coverage of California racial discrimination cases involving Cardinal Health and Ryder Logistics, official EEOC press releases regarding Helados La Tapatia, Marquez Brothers International, and BaronHR settlements, Public Policy Institute of California Unemployment Data for Los Angeles County, 2024, California Department of Fair Employment and Housing litigation involving Tesla, jury findings in the Cognizant employment discrimination case, U.S. Department of Labor findings involving Wells Fargo, reporting on Wells Fargo hiring investigations, Washington Post coverage of Morgan Stanley litigation, HR Dive reporting on JPMorgan discrimination allegations, Heritage Bank of Commerce lawsuit filings, and official public announcements from the Office of Governor Gavin Newsom and the Office of Mayor Karen Bass regarding immigration-related executive directives and disaster relief programs. Legal disclaimer: this content is produced for educational, informational, and journalistic commentary purposes. Scope News compiles publicly available court filings, regulatory settlements, government labor data, and official policy statements to analyze employment discrimination patterns and public policy outcomes. Allegations referenced reflect claims made in lawsuits and investigations. Some cases were settled without admission of wrongdoing. This report does not constitute legal advice. Viewer discretion is advised due to references to racial slurs and documented workplace harassment contained in court records. All information reflects publicly available documentation at the time of publication.